thank you for having me here tonight. I'm an attorney. I live in Pearl River, in Beverly Hills of Pearl River. And, I don't want to go over everything. I went over that you already heard. I just talked to Representative Hollis. He also authored the recall bill that's being executed right now in New Orleans. So he's been in the news a lot lately. The one with Cantrell because he lowered the signature requirement. But he says, I feel really confident about this bill. It just does what needs to be done. So I did, after speaking to you guys last week, I did go through Tangi and find out which books you guys have, and I listed the top 10. I don't know. I thought there was a guy named David that I was emailing.
That's me.
That is the, okay.
Yes.
So his name,
Well, Jay.
So,
He goes by Jay from State.
okay, so you got that. I don't know if you were able to pass it around. Ron DeSantis today tweeted something about books, and 2 of the books he listed, you do have in your library system.
What I did was, I had that gigantic book,
Yeah, oh,
and it
right.
had about 100 books in St. Tammany Parish with printouts on those books. And I think 7 of those were on our list, so I pulled those 7 examples and
Okay.
just passed them around. So each of y'all has a different packet. But each of those packets is one book that is found in Tangipahoa Parish Libraries in the children's section.
Well,
And
so-
these are printouts of pictures and
Yeah.
statements taken directly from the books.
Like genderqueer, which is one of the worst ones with oral and pedophilia, that actually, unlike St. Timothy, that is in the young adults section in your library, which is ages 12 to 18 or 12 to 17. It is the one that Ron DeSantis just tweeted about today. It is ridiculous, but that's what it is. I wanted to bring you up to speed with stuff that has happened since I spoke last week. Livingston Parish 2 nights ago put a huge amount, their director resigned, which we believe possibly was partly due to us because we did a public records request. The woman also, who was a pit bull that works with me named Connie, you met her last week, she just dropped this massive public records request, and you would not believe the stuff that it caught. One of which is the head of the Livingston Parish Library calling for the American Library Association, which is in Chicago, to come get involved in all of this. And all I know is when we told one of the Livingston Parish Council members, they said, he lied to us. He said they had no involvement, and because we turned that over. And I mean, what's really happening, and this is why I think this is sort of an Rpec issue, is you have far left in multiple parishes and municipalities controlling the institution, even in conservative parishes. They control, in our case, in St. Tammany, they control about $12 million. And it's not just the sexually inappropriate books, it definitely is stuff that we would consider grooming. It's trying to sexualize kids. We found pedophilia. For instance, we had, and even last week, when we had a library board of control meeting, I had a guy I know read a book that had detailed description of bestiality. And said, because they tried to propose a resolution, they said, this is gonna fix this. And I said, go read this book and tell them the resolution doesn't cover it. They admitted it didn't cover it. So 2 nights ago that happened. Last night, Livingston Parish voted to remove one of their board of control members, which is partly due to the Attorney General's opinion, which he released last month at the request of Representative Garofalo, which after we had spoken to him, saying that you have the ability to do that. Lafayette, I think last month, implemented the Attorney General's new guidance on any type of sexual material, or any type of material that contains sexually explicit, has to be restricted from kids. St. Tammany Parish, we're having a separate issue that we're gonna get done one way or the other, where they, for whatever reason, the parish council does not want to hold the board of control accountable, but just to show you how much pressure we are able to show, the chairman of the parish council in St. Tammany Parish is now a member of the board of control as of last week. So he sits there, and they passed a resolution that is completely toothless. And I mentioned this, I think, some last week, and we told them, hey, this doesn't cover anything. It only covers graphic novels, which is a comic strip genre. And they kept bragging, oh, it's just 5 books, 5 books, 5 books. They stripped down the AG's language, they did that. And we believe the reason they did that is because the chairman of our parish council knew the board of control would not vote for anything stronger, because they defeated it the last 2 times before. Because they're just rogue. And this is what you have to understand about this is, there's a lot, the board of control and a lot of these library administrations, they believe they have the right to dictate community standards rather than respect them. And if you see from our public records, they're basically engaging in politics on taxpayer dime, on taxpayer time. And they are very far left. I was fortunate somebody sent me a Zoom link 2 weeks ago, of an opposition meeting, which was as insane as you can imagine. I just sat there and listened. I tried to record it, but I messed up and I didn't. But they had parish directors of libraries on the call. They had other like high-level librarians on the call, working with the opposition for how to defeat my legislation, for how to defeat any of these types of resolutions, completely inappropriate. And so just you have to understand that the institution, which is what we discovered of library, is just for whatever reason it's very far left. It's just, and it's very, very hostile to community standards. I mean, you've seen the examples, sexually explicit stuff, pedophilic, a lot of stuff with rape with children, a lot of just, anything you can imagine. And I gave you guys some examples last week of just the sheer stupidity of some of it, getting aroused by fecal matter. I mean, it's just stupid stuff. And we keep hearing people tell us, well, no, they're the experts. They need to choose what kind of book. No, we've seen your expertise. And we're just, so I mean, this is how I came up with my bill that, and I emailed it to you as well.
We all have copies of it.
Yeah, so basically I do three things in it, because it is true that currently some of the parishes and municipalities don't have a lot of authority. It's all basically you appoint these board of control members, and then they have like 5 years to sit on these boards and control tens of millions of dollars a year. Tens of millions of dollars over 5 years. In my case, it's $12 million in St. Tammany. And they just, as we've seen in St. Tammany, they just continually show nothing but hostility toward community standards, because they don't see that as their job. You know what I'm saying? We've seen with our own library director, one of the most egregious things that we're trying to get her held accountable for is the ALA. Let me back up. They are taught, and we've seen the videos where they're taught to, when you have a concerned parent, tell them to go fill out a statement of concern. And they even admit the intent is to get them to go in service. Well, what are you gonna do if you're a busy mom after a while? Like, okay, I complain. What am I gonna do? That's the intent.
David, why don't you tell us about the ALA and how
Sure.
the organization works?
So the ALA is the American Library Association. It's in Chicago. The head, and again, I'm not exaggerating, I'm gonna say it's far left. The head says, "I am a proud Marxist." I mean, what are you gonna do? And so you have all these people in the head of the ALA, which our library directors were talking directly to them, which is why you guys may want to do some public records requests and see what's happening in your parish. But they're talking directly to them. Giovanni, the one who's just resigned in Tangi, sending out 12 o'clock emails on the weekend at midnight saying we need the ALA involved. Our own parishes are talking directly to the top people at the ALA, saying, how do we fix this? And you'll see some emails where people will say, well, we have a conservative parish. How do we get around this? And it's like, this is how they think. It's like, how do we undermine what's there? How do we dictate community standards? And I think what tripped up Giovanni, which is what we understand from some of the parish council members, is he said, well, we really don't have much to do with them. And then they saw the email where, there's not a lot of, there's intelligence questions with all this, like, why are you emailing this stuff on public email? But they'll get one of the parish library directors, I think it's Mary LaBeouf of Homo, is that terrible?
Terrible.
Yeah, she's like, I'm intentionally being vague in this email because I know, and it's like, what are you people doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're taxpayer funded. What do you think you're doing? But so you have this organization in Chicago that's basically running your library systems. And one of the things that we're trying to hold our library director accountable for, so they said they tell the people to just do these statements of concern. So what our library director, she has an email from the ALA that says, turn over your statements of concern to us for a confidential database. This is local residents. It has their names, it has their addresses, phone numbers, getting turned, and then we have another email showing where she, at least on one occasion, which we're sure it was more than that, complied. So she's turning over people's information, complaining about social issues to this leftist organization in Chicago to be stored in a confidential database without anyone knowing. I mean, the other organization, Concerned Citizens, which has a lot of influence, I'm telling you, like, we need accountability for this. This is unacceptable. People are rightfully paranoid these days that, what are you doing sticking me in the national database? You know what I'm saying? Without me even knowing about it. So, some of my involvement, I've been following this for a while. I got involved around October. That's when it just grew up. We have a Facebook page. St. Tammany Parish Library Accountability Project, please follow, you can, STPLAP. And man, we have triggered something in St. Tammany. They are going crazy about us. I mean, they are showing up, calling out our names at meetings. I mean, just tweeting stuff about us, going and posting pictures of our homes.
Right.
Connie, I will tell you, that's one of the things that really upset me. I'm a guy, I'm also a lawyer, but they have picked Connie because she's a small blonde mom, and they have sent food to her house, they have sent pictures of knives to her, they have posted pictures of her house online, tried to say she's a tax fraud.
Right.
And they have picked her because she is seen as the weakest link.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I'm good.
Tell us about your bill and why it would get around the First Amendment concerns of
Okay.
the library liberals.
So, my bill, you have, see, Attorney General Landry called us, to a press conference a couple weeks ago, because of just, I don't know how exactly you heard about us, but, I mean, we were having an impact. So at that point, they were gonna present one of the bills, which is Senator Cloud's, which is SB7, which it gets into mandating certain things. Specifically, it was implementing the AG's guidance, which says any types of materials that are sexually explicit have to be restricted from children. So what I did a different approach, and his office helped me fix some of the language. I said, it's the fact of the matter that most parishes are red parishes in the state. And that's probably not gonna change in a lot of ways because I'm an immigration attorney, and I often have to come to Tangipahoa or Livingston because for special immigrant juvenile, which is Hispanic. And I know that a lot of the new growth in the parishes are Hispanic. They're not into this stuff at all. But I said, I know that, I trust most of the parishes. I live in I think St. Tammany's 13 or 14 Republicans on our parish council. So I said, let's just make sure, give full authority, instead of this unelected board, let's give full authority to the elected representatives. And this will get fixed that way. So I addressed three things. First, I said, even though they've been told that you get 5 years where you appoint these people, and in my case, they control $60 million over 5 years, you can't remove them. Mine says they serve at the pleasure of the parish council, of the governing authority, which means, look, we decided you're not meeting community standards, which is what just happened in Livingston. That's specifically what they said. They said, she is not voting the right way. She's supposed to represent us, this member of the board, where she's removed. And they voted to remove her, and that's exactly how it should be. And so that's the first thing it does. The second thing it does is right now, the Board of Control's regulations have to comply with state law. And I say it has to comply also with local ordinances, which, and I'll give you a simple example, it could be the moral stuff, or it can also just be transparency. Right now, we have been asking for the St. Tammany Parish Library Board to please broadcast online. Because if you go into some of these meetings, they're like 70% left wing, because that's who, they coordinate with them. There are these little rooms, like a fourth of this size. You can't get in, it's standing room only, and it's not mic'd a lot of times. You can't even hear. You can't even hear what they're doing. So we've said, please put them online. They refuse. So this would say, if you can have an ordinance, and even one of our parish council members said, oh, I'll ask them to put it online. So, and that didn't happen. So this would say, yes, you are going to start putting this online, period. This isn't a negotiation. That's the second thing it would do. It would also, if you want to implement the Attorney General's guidance that says you have to restrict all these materials, that would force them to do that. The third thing, which is what's being done in a lot of other states, is it says that the Board of Control, the governing authority, which is the parish council or the municipality, because sometimes they Lafayette or some of these places, it's the city that controls the library. It says that they have the right to regulate and conduct oversight. And it specifically, I put language in there, and may conduct oversight through boards, panels, or commissions, which it may create for such a purpose. And this is where the First Amendment thing comes in. And one of our first people we presented this issue to was the mayor of Slidell, and he had a city attorney there, and he said, you have a far more constitutional discretion before the books are purchased. So that's why this provision would say, if you had a community board, or something like a community standards panel, which is Supreme Court language, they would have to basically check on the books before they're purchased. And I guarantee you, this would they're not gonna buy 99% of these things. So while the other bill that Landry helped craft was deals with specific issues, like we're gonna talk, this type of issue, this type of sexually explicit. This just says they have to go through basically a bottleneck of the community standards. And I guarantee you, most people aren't gonna buy this stuff. And it's not just, it wouldn't just be for materials. In Lafayette, they had, it was last year or so, they had drag queen story hour at the library. It would be, the community has to approve of materials, and the community has to approve of events. And they just had last month, they had one of this author come and speak to 12-year-olds. And it wasn't even, it was just, I forgot, Ellen Hopkins, or something, who has just some of the really vulgar, not vulgar, just, pedophilia and stuff, some of those things in her materials. She came and they said, they gave free books out in Lafayette Library, and it said for ages 12 and up. It's just completely, not stuff that 12-year-olds should be reading. I will say one more thing, is, what we get so often is people messaging us and saying, I was a victim of sexual abuse. Please, thank you for doing this. Because I will tell you, part of the reason I got into this, as a Christian, you look at some of the translations of the Bible, and it says about the orphan, and also sometimes it says the fatherless. That is the main target of all of this. It's poor single moms that have to go leave their kids at libraries that don't have a dad to help them know about this stuff. And we had one mom that said, she was a widow, and she showed up at one of these things, and she said, I need somebody to help me. I need to know when I drop my kids off in the library, I don't have to think they're gonna get exposed to because it's people say grooming, which is very hot button top, but you're sexualizing kids. You're conditioning them to think you're very young, it's okay to have these conversations with older people. And it's not, because where does it go from there? They say it's not nefarious, but that's really what it's about. When you start putting this stuff into 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, you condition them to think that this stuff is acceptable with adults.
Right. And so getting back to the bill, the bill is no way advocating to remove books from the library.
No.
We simply want the community to be able to decide to put those books in the adult section.
Well, it doesn't even get in the language. If you look at the last part, which is the end of 215A, it doesn't even get into any types of things they can do. It just says conduct oversight, but constitutionally, they probably, but again, this would be it doesn't get any of this with the state law. Constitutionally, there are some places where they've had community boards where they decide, hey, we're just gonna remove this, or we're gonna restrict it, or whatever. But it doesn't get into any of that, because it just leaves it up to the municipality to decide how they're gonna handle this. But that's why I specifically wrote it. This is what Representative Hollis was just telling me tonight, is you made this sound is boring, because it's completely, my bill, unlike the Senate bill, it's completely procedural. It has nothing to do, it doesn't even mention books in there. It doesn't mention materials, it doesn't mention events. And I had the Attorney General's office, when she said, or one of the assistants, she said, it does everything that you are wanting it to do, the language you're using. So, any questions?
David, when this is going before the,
it's gonna be speaking of, I appreciate it. It's gonna be, House Municipal something, Edmonds?
Local parochial municipal
Yes,
affairs.
yes, it's gonna be there in
You want
April.
to chair?
It's, me? It's House Municipal Affair,
Local
Representative Edmonds.
parochial and municipal affairs.
Yeah, Representative Edmonds, and he's already said he's excited
And
about
what's
it.
happened is this will be
Y'all
revealed.
have it on my
The
list.
ALA,
Yeah.
what they've done is they've chosen our local libraries as a killing field. And I use that term because what they've done is these transgender things, they made their way here now, but they didn't want them in other states, as you see these parties.
Yeah.
And what they do is, this is actually more nefarious than you.
I heard.
So what they've done is they've basically put an open sign for pedophiles to come to libraries.
Yeah.
And so what they do is, libraries have access to Wi-Fi. Libraries are a black hole. We just opened a new one in Cougle. I don't use a library anymore. They're archaic, okay? We have so much access to things that I don't need a library for anymore. But some people do.
Yeah.
That's a small minority, but that's all they need.
Yeah.
So what the parents do is they drop them off. They become a babysitting center.
Yeah.
And so when these kids are there, there's codes. I know this sounds,
No, I agree.
so there's codes inside this pedophile world. And they know to go to libraries, okay? And so these pedophiles go to the libraries and they see these kids and they pull the book out I know this sounds like a fairy tale, I'm telling
You
you.
can look at it.
But you're gonna all say, how does Joel Morgan know so much? And they go and they sit down with these kids and they show them these books. And this is where these kids are now groomed and are eventually turned into pets for these people. So this is far more sinister,
It is.
Luciferian, satanic than you'd ever imagine, because these kids are preyed upon. They've made it, these libraries, a killing field.
Well, I will tell you, one of the first places I spoke about this was before the Slidell City Council, which passed a resolution, this is like months ago, but, oh, yeah, so the chief of police, Randy Fandle, was standing right there next to me, and I said, not because of me, but he was just sitting, that was the table. And I said, you know, if I went to such and such park, I said John Slidell Park, which is one of our parks,
Yeah.
and I showed these to a kid, I'd be arrested. He was like,
Yep.
of course you would. I mean, you've seen the pictures, this is ridiculous.
You go into a library.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, and one of the other councils, we have a special thing going on with us in St. Tammany, which gives us more leverage, in that we have a millage coming up in March. And we are openly saying, if you don't give us reform, we're gonna take down this millage. And I've had elected officials say, it's not gonna pass without what you want to do. And I mean, I will tell you, what one of the city councilmen told me, he's like, if that millage fails, it's gonna mostly affect poor people and single moms, which are the primary people that go.
I looked at our board members. Now, I discussed with the U.S. attorney, this board members that were on there. It is just, you left an indelible impression. I want to thank you for coming to Pearl River. But listen, I looked at our board members. It is just amazing. How do you not? That's never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
To go to somebody and go, Randy, you're on the parish, man, I want to be on the library board, man. It's important for me
People don't
to be
think-
on the library board. I got so much, and then I looked at that library board and I went, I know a lot, there ain't none of them me. There ain't no Republican conservative, and
Yeah.
then there's some of them on there that I'm not gonna say anything. And I'm like, you don't find that suspicious? That's what I looked when I said that, I'm like, I know who that is. And it meets all the criteria that don't make any sense
Yeah.
with what's going on within the books in there. Because I can't imagine why the hell they're on that library board.
Well, I would, we've had to have almost a rapid response because the media and the library and their minions are against us. And what you hear a lot of times is, we're not supposed to babysit, you're supposed to have your parents there. And one of the responses I gave, which everybody cheered at, which I was proud of, I sometimes think of good singers, I'm like, this is a difference in philosophy. The library is not Bourbon Street at night, and you have to cover your kids' eyes based on what block you're on. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is a philosophy difference. People have a right, I'm sorry, no.
But
Yeah,
no,
go ahead.
you keep talking. I was just gonna say kind of to what you're saying. Whenever I moved to Mandeville, I heard there was a school board meeting, not a school board meeting, a library meeting on some of the transgender books that were going into libraries, and it was in the Maritime Museum in Madisonville.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is awesome. You get to go speak on it. And I was like, this is in Madisonville. Like, this is the best place to talk about this. I'm gonna have fired up citizens. I showed up. There were 2 of us and 51 of the opposition.
Yeah.
And now the thing is I had a lot of people. And
It's-
in Madisonville,
You
okay?
have to understand, it's an institution.
Yes.
That's who goes to those meetings, that's why
Yes.
we're going over their head.
And now I heard from a lot of people during that. I told them that, and they said, well, so they actually, I'm in their little group chat, the liberal group chat, and they congregate from New Orleans,
Yeah.
from that. But here's the thing, that's not an excuse. They're doing a better job than we
They
should
are.
be doing at showing up.
I
We
agree.
believe in personal responsibility, so we gotta have moms, dads,
Well-
everybody filling that place up.
One thing
They're
he
boring,
mentioned,
but.
one thing he mentioned that, I particularly have interest in the transgender thing because I think it's almost like a suicide cult.
You see these
Well,
videos.
because you know the suicide rate, they're trying to get people into this stuff. My bill, the difference between this and the House bill, because they tried this in Texas, they tried to specifically prohibit gender ideology. I don't get into any of that. I let the community decide, because I guarantee you a community board in like 99% of the parishes in the state, they're gonna, because this is my thought. And I mean, I'm not a constitutional attorney, so they can probably write this a little bit better than me. You say, okay, right now in my parish, the library director, who's far left, has 3 experts who decide all the books, and then you learn about them afterwards. okay, from now on, you're gonna give us an exhaustive list of 100 or 200 books, and then our community board will pick from those which ones we want. There you go. We're not, no viewpoint discrimination, nothing. We'll pick all of them, or maybe we'll pick 80 of them, maybe we'll pick 70 of them. And it's gonna be prohibited to even talk about why you don't want this one or that. And I mean, that's what I've understood is the constitutional way to do it. So you're never gonna have those books bought again, because, and not because you prohibit it, because that's gonna get challenged in court. It's just like, hey,
It's a selection.
and one of the ways I've reached moderate people that are not, because I tell you, what turns people off most, as soon as they hear the book banning thing, they cower. Oh, I don't know. And I'll say, okay, you have, I looked it up on Google, it's like 130 million books on the planet. We have like half a percentage of that in St. Tammany. Why don't we, the taxpayers should, the way that the financial priorities of our library system should reflect the financial priorities of the community. And that's that simple, because you have a limited amount of books, you have a limited amount of money, let's just make sure this is what the people want to buy. And when you get away from that, they're like, you know, and I even had one of the parish councilmen that spoke at the last board of control meeting, he said, he proposed my idea. And they, like, why don't we have a community board? No, because they don't want that. Because, and the reason why is because they know they control it right now. They know they control the money. Go ahead.
We got a parish councilman, this is why I don't know what's going on with our stuff, because I can't believe this parish councilman is being shown these books are being approved. I have a hard time believing that Louis Joseph would approve those.
I have a hard time believing it.
Because he's a good man. He's a former superintendent of our education, but Louis Joseph is on that board. And I'm just wondering if he's even going to the meetings, or if he's even being shown that.
Some of the board of control, they don't necessarily deal in acquisitions. Like in St. Tammany, it's the director who is appointed by the board of control, who has these 3 expert panel, which to this day she refuses to identify that. And they choose them all, and this, just to show you all the corruption going on here. I went to the Mandeville City Council thing in December, and they have a public comment section at the end. 30 minutes after I got there, I didn't tell anyone. 30 minutes after I got there, who do you think came on? The director of the parish library and 3 of her employees. She showed up. Somebody told her I was there, and she rebutted me and said, "We have transparency in book purchases. We tell you after you buy it." They're all fine. And I mean, but they know they're in the system, and then constitutionally, that's when you have a problem like challenge.
He could be mortified when he sees this.
Yeah.
I believe so.
He's Democrat. Well, he's good, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good man. But now, I just see some of them other board members, I'm like, how did they end up on the, I don't even know where to go to get on the board for
You
the
know,
library.
because historically, the library has had the trust of the community, and while people were sleeping, so, yeah, we actually worked.
Appreciate you guys. I hope you heard some
But
testimony.
the work you do,
Lenore
that's
Whitney,
tough.
so Republican National Committee woman for the state of
How much
Louisiana.
is
And I'm
it?
helping Brandon with his campaign. So I was a former state representative under Governor Bobby
And you came
Jindal.
over here to do it, and I.
And then I ran for Congress. Garrett Graves is the
Well, and
congressman.
what I asked you
There was an
guys,
open seat,
first of all,
and
encourage you
Edwins
to
was in that
do
race, so I
oversight
ran against Edwins.
you have people very
I was hoping he'd mention me in his
Memoirs.
memoirs, but he never made it that far. He didn't write that book yet before he passed.
Now, they probably say, Kaylee didn't see you. Were you doing action?
This is really
Yes,
very
they
interesting.
cover it
It's
for
really bad
that's-
stuff,
But
you know.
it's primarily
It's
here.
interesting.
This is the crazy part about it. I can think of a million people I'd like to interview,
Why don't,
but
why
for
don't
whatever
they
reason,
sue
Tiffany
the
does,
parish
at
council?
least once a month.
What they should do is
Yeah,
one
he's
sheriff
our-
went in from one county, because it's
He interviews our
the
library director.
Yeah.
But Brad,
the
it's the
council
most remarkable
who
thing, like,
appoints
you go
the
there, you-
library
what the hell
board.
did he buy?
The
He's telling me
sheriff
about the
went in
library.
and
Yeah.
said, you
You
have
get
2
about better
options.
interview.
He says, you resign or I arrest you today. And they all resigned. All the parish council people resigned. Because what they're doing is they were spreading pornography. It was like, I can arrest you for the distribution of pornography for these having these books in the library.
I was unable to make that
They
because my cousin
sue
was
the
getting
parish
married,
council.
that
No,
Saturday.
they should. They should put, the sheriff should be
But
putting
yeah,
pressure
that's someone
even.
that they
They
invited
should sue.
Right. And you have
Whoever's
no
with.
oversight.
to the children.
Yeah.
It was
I don't
actually.
know that the
a
reps, I don't know
but
that
they
the
were gonna make
RPAC would
stuff
have
and
that.
Right.
crafts
No, know this gentleman.
Well,
I don't
and
know
what
his
Oh,
I
I
name.
see what you're saying, like his organization or somebody
Yeah,
sue the
yeah.
council.
Sue the
So
council.
what we are
Probably the people,
proposing
the
to do
person
is
over the council
obviously
is the
priority
attorney
is stopping
general.
kids from being sexualized.
Because the
But
attorney
you
general
need to
has
bring
legal
your government
authority
entity.
over the
We pay for
parish
you.
council.
We're a
The
conservative
parish
parish,
council
we're gonna have deals.
has
And my
the
bill
authority
allows
over
Over
the
the
library
library.
board. That's my
And
understanding.
then the next thing-
And this is
the
really
next thing would be
nothing.
to
Yeah, this is kind of a little, a little beyond my fifth grade civics class.
Right, and now they're trying to bring in legislation
no more
using
tax
himself and
dollars.
Paul
You may
Hollis
not
that
get
would
any more
clear
tax
some
dollars
of this
today,
stuff
like,
up.
or you could
But
even, you will
as
not
they
be a part of
receive it,
it.
you're shocked
You
with
can-
the
I think you
people
can
on
do that
these
with my bill
library
as well.
boards that are.
But I mean, exactly the point,
That's
is they have these things,
true.
because they see themselves as dictating.
I'm an
understand.
avid
I
library
know we could
goer.
go on about this all
So
night,
I'm
we
a
got more
little-
business to tend to, so just wanna be clear, your bill is.
I'm not
House Bill
100%
25.
Yeah.
one
Go
or
to
the
the
other.
library and go find out if you can get these numbers.
Telling your
No,
legislators.
what I'm
Oh, we
saying is
are.
like, I'm a
We-
huge
you guys
First
shame on
Amendment.
us.
Oh, right,
We
right, that's why
should've
we're saying we
had
don't want the
Nikki
books
huge
removed,
First
that's what we're saying,
Amendment.
because
Is
we
that your
don't,
representative?
we don't want them to start
He's
filing
one-
them
he's
and
one
saying
of
we're
them.
putting
And I don't think that, I'm not totally convinced that kids are being part of there. I'm not totally convinced, I'm just saying.
And.
I'm
these
listening.
books are
I'm listening.
And
I have one and I read it.
They're terrible.
I wasn't that,
Straighters
but my
will be
children
running
are,
for,
no.
she's gonna be
Yeah.
an important figure in this.
He's good, yeah.
On the resolution.
I'll make a
so wonderful to
motion
meet
that we,
you. So wonderful to meet you.
accept
Thank
that
you so
resolution,
much.
Thank you.
that we support that resolution. That's how we need to do that.
So is that for the HB 24?
Yes.
Could you guys email me a copy of that later? Not now, but just so we can post it. Not now.
We need a.
I'll second the motion.
Alright, we got a roll call.
The exact name of that is House Bill.
HB 25.
It's in the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
Alright, so this is a vote to endorse and will publicize HB 20.
Do you want to keep this?
No, I have.
Yeah.
There's a copy of the bill that
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah, here.
Or, okay, okay.
So, where did Miss Susie go?
This is it.
No, I'll get her.
Did you write,
Miss
that?
Caroline,
Did you write that bill?
Yeah,
You wrote it?
yeah, that's what I did.
Dante,
Yeah, well, but the AG's office helped me.
Bradley,
Yes.
Seth,
Yeah.
Eric, Joel.
Yes.
Strader,
Yes.
motion
Susie's the only one that's said that.
carries. Yeah, but we can, yeah, I'll get our official, it's still carried regardless.
Please follow us on Facebook, STPLAP. They're trying to get us taken down and keep us working. I did pass one of the pictures I passed out is a book that we have, but you guys did not have, which when we posted it, Facebook took it down because they said it violated company standards. This is just, yeah.
Oh, so it violated Facebook policy. Go figure.
That's what's going, this is how ridiculous this is. And that book is for 12-year-olds in our library. It is not in yours, but you
Which
can
one
buy
was
it.
it, by the
It's
way?
called Flamer.
Did you have?
Ron DeSantis just, I think that was one of the ones he just tweeted about, we'll
put a copy of it on the,
Is that Facebook?
on Facebook, we'll put a copy of the bill, announce that we support it, put it out there, and, well, we can also contact in the parish for, state rep side, Robbie, Bill, Larry, Nikki, show support for them once they get it through their signatures, and then push it to Bodie, Patrick, and Beth, and Mr. Coach.
Beth, I mentioned this real quick. We have had a Zoom call with her. She said she's gonna carry it in the Senate. She's not doing the Senate version, she's carrying it in the Senate. What she says, this does exactly right, the right way to do this. So, yeah, please, if you guys please try to, this will become law eventually. It's not now, it'll be the next governor, but it's.
Now it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Thank you for the work you did.
No, thanks, appreciate it. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Very much.
See you.